Hello.
Hey.
How is everybody today? I'm just really glad it's not Monday.
It's not Monday. It's
Monday was
Tuesday.
rough this week, so I'm really glad it's not
It's
Monday.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Though I got to admit, that whole computer thing's got me.
Yeah.
If there's any computer gurus out there would like to donate their time to fix ours. No,
yeah, we are having some email issues with our computer. So we have access to the email, but not in the way that we like.
Not the normal way.
So it's kind of messed up. And
I spent, I don't know, 3 hours this morning. At least it felt like it.
Yeah.
It was close to 3 hours trying to figure it out and get it back working. And
I spent
two
an
steps
hour
forward
this morning.
Yeah, I spent some time yesterday when it went down for originally. Yeah, so unfortunately, we're having some technical issues, but not with this.
Not with this.
So this is all that matters, right?
Right. Especially on Tuesdays.
Especially on Tuesdays. So,
but that's funny.
Like, well, that's interesting.
So today we had this random person walk in the door and then they left really quickly.
Left. Yeah.
And as it turns out, that person was coming here to look at a sewing machine, but realized that there weren't any tags on the door.
So they went back out.
And they left instead of just giving us or giving us a call. And they sent me a Facebook message saying, I was running short on time, didn't have time to wait. So sorry.
We have been the past couple of days it's been so windy, the tags don't want to stay on the doors.
They do not.
So sometimes just because there's no tag doesn't mean you can't come in.
Right.
And sometimes it does mean you can't come in.
Right.
But
sometimes you can kind of tell by how many cars are parked outside.
Parked out front, yeah.
If there are a bunch of cars parked outside and there are no tags on, there is
That's
a
pretty good possibility that we are full.
We are full, so, and it would be great if you waited. We've got a lot of people who aren't waiting anymore.
Yeah, they're like, I'm done with this COVID stuff.
Yes.
And they're just doing their own thing.
So we are still trying to do it. And part of the reason why we're kind of throttling is that door is right next to our counter. And so people tend to congregate right
at the
there.
Front door. And whether they're checking out or whether they're coming in or whether they just need to pick up a machine.
That's right.
We all are trying to use that same spot. 100 square feet of space. A big shop,
right?
It doesn't seem big when we're all standing in the same spot.
Sometimes we'll wave you in because we know they're not. Everybody's not right at the front door.
Yeah,
absolutely. But sometimes they do just congregate right there.
So
the happy place.
What'd you do this weekend?
I finished.
You finished your quilting stuff.
I did. I finished the quilting designs for the Kimberbell stuff, and I converted them all to the different formats in case you are not a PES customer. We can help you with that, but if you aren't and you don't want help, I did put the other versions
on there.
Hopefully got the PDF file so that
makes sense to everybody.
Makes sense. It makes sense to me, but I did it, so that helps. We started a closet project at home. So the master bedroom, the closets were in pretty bad shape, and this is typically how a project goes at our house, right? I have a version of what I think it should be like, and then
Dave has his version,
right? And he usually wins in parts because he's the one doing it, right? Yeah. So we had talked about opening the closet and making one big one. We have 2 4-foot closets in there,
okay,
and they just didn't do a very good job with the shelving. It was like
I have a fairly large closet. I have a very large, no, I'm just kidding, fairly large closet, but it literally had like one hanging bar, and it's like, this is just stupid.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things we did before we ever moved in was we did the shelving.
This one had one here and then like a half of one here and then a half of one here, and that was it. And so it was like, it was just weird.
Just weird.
Yeah, just weird. So we bought some, we tried to get some really cool stuff at IKEA, but they're out of everything. Imagine that, right? So I couldn't even piecemeal it. They were just out of it. So we ended up stopping at Lowe's and finding something that we liked, and we got almost all of the pieces. But
yes, it's a challenge to find a complete, when we were looking for tile, when we were doing the shower in it was just like finding the mortar and finding the grout, and the quantities just aren't what they used to be. It's so much harder to find
and I think everybody's having such a hard time keeping up with the stock.
Well, we certainly understand that because we have that same problem here. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
That is just kind of what it's like right now in COVID land.
In COVID land,
yeah.
yes. So yeah, I didn't stitch it all this weekend.
Yeah, you said you had a little bit of a
had
headache.
a bad migraine on Sunday, so I took good use of my husband's blackout features in the bedroom. So he works nights, so he has lots of, things up so that no light comes in. It was very nice to have a dark room to go sit in this weekend.
Yeah,
so that was my day off.
Mm-hmm. Hey. We have some very exciting news. People have been waiting for the Kimberbell stuff.
New quilt.
It has arrived, so we are working.
Hayden is frantically trying to get everything boxed so that when anybody walks in the door, we can get them taken care of. And,
yep.
We were able to get more kits made. So fabric, for those of you who we originally said you would be on section number 2. Section 2 is ready as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we literally, I think we've got everybody that pre-ordered all set. So as of right now, it's no longer a pre-order.
It is no longer a pre-order. It is officially here.
It is officially here. And it looks so cute. There's some really adorable, the bonus projects that are in there. There's a cute bag design, a table centerpiece, and a really cute towel design that are just your bonuses.
Yeah, the bonus designs. So we're super excited. So if you haven't received an email from us and you don't receive one tomorrow, it might be because we're still working on our email issues. But they are here, and we are working diligently at getting that packaged, and we're pulling our hair out over the email. So hopefully we can.
Why mine looks so rough today is because I've been yanking on it for hours.
Oh my God, there's just nothing.
I did curl it and fix it this morning. It just doesn't really.
No, I didn't.
No life left.
I guess I did curl my hair just then.
A little bit. Yeah.
I parted it down the middle, so it did a different part.
It's a different look.
I don't know if I like it.
It's different. It's not bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have the glasses headband thing going on again. Seems to be my look of choice these days. So
yeah,
one of these days I'll get that doctor's appointment and try those bifocal contact things, but not so sure how that's going to work. No, it was not.
Yeah.
I keep thinking you said you had made yours online, your appointment, so I'm like,
yeah,
I just got to get on there and look. But amazingly enough, it's not always that easy.
No, sometimes it isn't, is it?
Sometimes it's just not. So
yeah, we had a lot of great response from our cabinets was last week, right?
Cabinets was last week.
Yeah, the cabinets was last week.
So it sounds like you guys enjoyed that.
Yeah, so we just wanted to say thank you for everybody who did come in and buy cabinets. Yeah. And for the questions and comments, it was nice. We're constantly trying to go, what are we going to do?
What are we going to do?
Yeah.
So, that's a lot harder than you guys think.
It is.
So this week, Sarah is going to show you how to cut bias strips. So, we definitely get asked that here and there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that it's a daily question by any stretch, but it's certainly something that you see in a lot of patterns is cutting on the bias and so on and so forth. So without further ado,
yeah.
Would you like to show them that?
Sure. So we're gonna
swap over to
camera.
Looking at the cutting mat, which is why we're standing over here again this week, is because we need a cutting mat. So she basically has a stripe so that you guys can really see what we're doing here. And this is basically a fat quarter. So that's the size of fabric that she's currently working with, just so that you guys can visualize a little bit better size-wise.
It doesn't really matter what size you originally start with. We essentially have, on this particular fabric here, because this is a fat quarter, so we have the width grain, which goes from the selvage edge to the opposite edge, which would be where the other selvage would be. So that's the width grain. And then we have the length grain, which would be, in this instance, the same direction that the stripes are going, or the little ziggly zags.
Little squiggles.
Yes. And so bias is diagonal. All right. And so the easiest way to get to a diagonal, if you think about like making a boat or a paper hat or something like that, or wrapping paper, is it's simply just folding the fabric so that you have one straight edge meets the other straight edge. And so now this piece right here is the bias of the fabric. And that is essentially all you have to do to get to that. So in order to cut that, we just need to turn it so that we can use our rotary cutter and our ruler. So if I turn my fabric this direction, this now becomes my straight up and down. And if the piece that I have here is too long, if we treat this piece of fabric just like we treat anything else that's too long, and we just fold it down so that it is shorter
than your ruler,
then you have this piece of material here, and all we have to do is start cutting.
And we almost have our paper boat hat.
You almost have your paper boat hat. Yeah, that's right. And so we do want to cut off this edge here. So I have it folded here for, so if you're a righty, you would have this piece like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just line this edge up. And then I'm making sure that I have the top edge on here lined up straight. So that fold and this line on my ruler are going straight. That is much more important than making sure that this piece right here is straight, because this is the part when you actually open up your strip that's going to be, that would be wonky if you didn't cut straight. And so I have the Quilters Select rulers here, and this fabric, it doesn't shift at all. The camera moves, but the
yeah, so these rulers are very special in that aspect.
Yes,
they stay where you put them.
They do,
which sometimes is wonderful, and sometimes you're like, I just need to move it a little bit, and my fabric won't move underneath. Absolutely. In which case, of course, you just tilt it up, right, slide it, and set it back down. Right. But the great thing about these is how well they stay.
So I just want to give a couple of little tips. So I'm paying no attention to the lines on my mat right now. All right. So I am using the lines on my ruler only, ignoring the lines on the mat. If you get yourself in that habit, you're going to be more consistent with your cuts, because it's likely that the lines on here and the lines on your mat are ever so slightly different. And so if you're bouncing between two different styles of things that have markings on them, you can get some inaccuracies. And so I'm going to place my left hand on the edge of my ruler. And even though this ruler does not move on me, I still want to make sure that I have a couple fingers off of the edge. That's going to just give me more control over this, so that I don't actually move my whole project over, not just my ruler, but in this instance, I could move the whole doodad over, and I don't want to do that. So here I am, and I'm just cutting along the edge here. And this piece has now been cut off. And now we just need to flip the fabric so that we can go ahead and cut it. And so I'm just going to hold everything like this, and I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to flip it around so that I have the fold to me. And then I am going to place this again, making sure that I am square.
So again, she's using the lines on the ruler, which I know there's just a slight glare from the light above her, but she is using those nice dark lines on the ruler to line up with the edges of the fabric, both on the base and on that left edge. And she's lining that up at the 2.5 inch mark.
All right, so that's what I've got here. Yeah, we've got really good glare. That's a little easier. Yep. So there you can see I'm nice and in line with that. And then again, my hand is going to go over to the side. I'm going to use my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to cut straight up. And I just keep doing this
as much as you need
until I have all of the fabric pieces that I need. Again, making sure that each time I do this, I'm keeping my ruler straight to my fold. And with this particular ruler, sometimes it shifts the fabric down at the bottom. So I'm straight again, and there we go. And so you just keep doing this over and over, and you're always going to get a variety of different lengths of pieces just because of how the fabric is folded. But you can see it's really, really stretchy.
So this is really great when you are doing some binding that has a curved edge.
Mm-hmm.
And that's generally where you will see the need
Yes.
for that is working on curves. And then you'll also see that very, very commonly on like our serger feet in the instructions and things when it says to cut a strip for things. It says, a bias strip.
Yep.
Do you always need to use a bias when it says that?
Not, I would say 90% of the time, probably. 10% of the time, maybe not. And it might just depend on the application that it is being
where
intended
you're going to put
for.
It after it's been cut.
That's right. So a couple of things to keep in mind when you're doing this. The reason that bias binding on a quilt is so popular is because this is the strongest part of your fabric, actually. So it will wear the best. So if you were giving a quilt away to maybe a baby or the parents of a baby,
it's going to be dragged around.
That's right. And it's going to be washed and beat up a lot. Putting bias binding along the edge of the quilt will make that quilt last longer. One of the things that happens is that it tends to take the most abuse. That is why, as a quilter who makes her own binding, why ours is double folded all the way around. So this is 2.5 inches. What we would do to put this on our quilt or use this for any other type of binding is we would fold this in half first and we would press it. And then when we go to put this on our particular project, we would sew this down and then we would flip it around. And so what would happen is this edge right here is double.
Right.
So when you go to the store and you buy something called double fold bias binding, this is what they do. They fold in.
They fold them in.
And they fold in. And then this is the piece that you end up putting around your fabric. And so
you tuck your quilt between there.
You end up tucking your quilt.
Guess what? That's a single layer on the outside.
That's really only single on the outside. So
it's double folded, but not really where you want it to be.
Right. Because most people don't take this piece and fold it and flip it around because it's not usually big enough.
It's not usually big enough.
That's right.
So to answer the question, this is again the Quilters Select Ruler. This is 8.5 by 24. This is my favorite ruler. I have one of these at home and it is my go-to for all of this type of cutting. Of course, I have smaller versions as well for when I'm cutting smaller things, but
yeah,
it's a great ruler to have in your repertoire.
If you're cutting a lot of 2.5-inch strips, I would recommend the 6-inch. It's actually 6.5, I believe. I would recommend that one. It's a little easier to manipulate because it's not so wide. Your hand isn't so far away. And then, yeah, like Lisa was saying, a smaller ruler is definitely good. If you
have a 6 by 12,
yeah,
that's really great for those small pieces.
Yep.
And if you can see, these rulers have all of the angled markings in there. So when you're doing, half square triangle trimming and whatnot, you can really get that down to a specific point very, very easily. And the great thing is you can actually, with that grip on the back of these, you can cut one side and literally turn the whole ruler and cut the other side and everything stays where you put it.
Yes.
So I do believe we have them in stock over there, Sandy. And I will pull you one as long as we do.
Yep. So that is really bias. And there were also a couple of rotary cutting tips in there for you. Always close your ruler.
Always close your ruler.
We both said it. Always
close the ruler.
Yes.
Very important to close that ruler. You never know when it's going to come by you. This cute little purple ruler right here. That's the one we're talking about. But yeah, make sure that you close that rotary cutter. It is very easy to make an oops and hurt yourself.
Yeah, they're very, very sharp.
They're very sharp. And, even cutting with, as she was saying, putting your hand off to the other side. If you're holding right by where you're cut, anybody ever trimmed their edge of their finger off?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. It really hurts and it bleeds like a son of a gun all over whatever's underneath of it. So you get points if you don't bleed on the fabric.
Absolutely. Yeah, don't bleed on the fabric.
Don't bleed on the fabric. But yeah, so keep your hand away from that cutting edge so that you don't accidentally nip it. I did mine when I was teaching those orange pop rulers.
Oh, I remember.
And I was talking stupidly, right? I was talking while I was doing it, so I wasn't really paying attention to what I was doing. Whoosh, just chopped off that little edge. Yep, just it grows back. It just takes a little while.
It does eventually grow.
It doesn't feel good, so don't do that.
No.
So, but yeah, so bias is important. It does definitely make a play, and if you don't know what you're doing, sometimes you work on a curved project that you don't have.
Yeah.
You just have straight regular pieces cut. You will definitely struggle a lot
you just
more.
Can't get it in.
You just can't get it to go where you need it to because there's no stretch to it. It just stays right where it's at. So
Marilyn wants to know if I can show how to fold the bias fabric again. I can. I'm not going to cut again though because I already chopped up one fat quarter, and you can replay this later. So
all right, so we're going to go to just the other camera real quick.
All right, so again, we have the width of fabric grain, we have the length of fabric grain, and we have the bias, which is on the diagonal. So the easiest way to fold to a diagonal is to just fold your fabric up towards, so I take the one straight edge and I'm folding it up towards the other straight edge. So like we used to make sailboats or paper hats. And this is your bias edge. So that's the edge that you're going to trim on. You're just going to turn your fabric and you're going to fold this piece just like you fold anything that is a little bit longer. You're just going to fold it down onto itself, making sure in this instance that we're keeping
that edge lined up.
The previous folded edge lined up.
And so if you're left-handed, you would just do this the other. If you're cutting left-handed, you would just be putting the fold on the left side instead. So you would simply
this way.
Folding it the opposite direction so that your ruler is in position where you wanted it to be.
Absolutely. Yep.
And you're going to cut off that little edge.
Yep. So then
you're going to cut your strips.
I'm not going to cut it, but you'll get the gist. So I can demonstrate it for the lefties out there. So again, here's my fabric. I'm making sure that I am keeping this line here, put my hand up there, this line here lined up with my fabric, and then I'm going to trim the fold off, take it away, and then
looks like this.
Yep, looks like that. Movie magic.
Movie magic. Ta-da!
That's done. And then you're going to end up with, pardon my reach, you know, it's going to look like this. And then
cut your strips.
You're going to cut your strips. So you'll just keep moving your fabric over. If you're a lefty, you're going to turn it
the other way.
This way. Yeah, this way. I cut with both hands. It's very confusing, making sure that I'm doing it the correct way. And then you'll place your ruler over here, and then you would just cut your strips. Again, making sure that you're keeping the fold even. If we don't keep the fold even, then when we open it up, we have weird shapes here. That's how come you get V's and U's and W's. Maybe I should cut one of those wrong, and then then you guys can see the difference of keeping the fold
straight versus not straight.
Yeah. So there's that. And then I'll cut for a lefty here.
I'll say this is the left-hand version.
Yep. So as you can see, I'm not straight. It's really hard for me to be purposely crooked. So I'm ever just so slightly off here. So, what are the odds? I would go right in between the two mats.
Well, you know.
So there we go.
So it's going to be perfect, right?
Now you can see that it's
a little bowed.
It's crooked. So I've got a little angle going here.
That you don't want.
That you don't want. Yeah. You can kind of see it's bowing down this way versus an angle.
Close that
ruler. My ruler. Yeah.
Close that ruler.
That's straight.
Important stuff, man.
So that's, again, what you don't want to do is you don't want to do that on non-straight edge because that's how you get the V's and W's.
Make good use of the lines in the ruler and make sure that both the left or the right, depending upon which direction you're cutting with.
Yes.
And that bottom is right on one of those lines on your ruler.
Absolutely.
Whether it's one of these rulers or whether it is whatever you happen to have at home already. There are some really
feels like
really
a win. We didn't cut a cord.
I know we didn't cut anything.
Us.
Anything that we weren't supposed to did not get cut.
So that was a win.
That was fantastic.
Yeah, that was
so
not
that
too bad.
is bias. It's not quite as complicated as
no.
People like it to be. You know, everybody's kind of afraid of it.
Yeah, there are other ways that people will show you by sewing the piece together and then doing some constant thing. I'll tell you, those things are way more complicated than just folding your fabric on a diagonal and then trimming. That is the super easy way of doing that. So, but yeah, that just, you know, don't overcomplicate it.
No, and I think that, you know, a lot of times we tend to try to overcomplicate things when it comes to sewing.
Well, I mean, if you Google bias strip making, I mean, it's a rabbit hole, and you're like, what?
I don't understand.
What just happened?
I don't have a clue what I just read or watched or whatever. This is a really straightforward way of getting to that end piece that you need.
Yeah.
It is certainly a little bit more work sewing them together to make the long piece that you need, because you're going to have some funky shapes and not shapes, but funky lengths, I guess, for so there'd be, you know, a little bit more, but big picture, you're going to end up with a much nicer fitting binding in this case than otherwise. And
I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like, I love to use, so I use bias all the time, not necessarily because I choose because it's the right thing to do, because I love to put stripes on my binding and I love to sew them.
It on the angle.
I do. I like that angled look. It looks so much, it just looks so much neater.
Marilyn would like you to show how to sew those strips together.
I can do that. I'm not going to actually sew it, but I can talk about it.
Show you how it goes together.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I typically, if it's a stripe fabric that I think that I would use the bias strips for, I will typically buy like a yard or a yard and a quarter, because you get some really nice lengths. Pieces. And then I will sew more of it together than I know I'm going to need for this particular project.
Just roll it up and keep it.
Just so that I can have, and I will alternate long strips with short strips. Because, you know, the thing that I hate the most is coming up to the seam on my binding and realizing that I'm
like
in the
inches away from where
it's right that it's on that seam. I will rip that bad boy out and resew it, shorten that little strip up before I will sew a seam into the corner of my binding. Mm-hmm. It's just such a mess. So I'm going to show like the easiest way to do this. There's always more than one way to do this.
Always more than one way to skin the cat.
That's right.
Where did that come from?
I don't know.
It's so mean.
It is. Let's not skin my cats.
We're not going to skin any cats.
All right. So,
skinless cats are creepy looking.
There are, like I said,
skinless cats, furless cats. Hairless. That's the word. Like, what is it? So I don't know. They're creepy looking.
We took a walk down our little town this weekend, and in one of the buildings there was a cat in the window, and Dave said, "I think that's a hairless cat." I'm like, nope, that's a cat that somebody just shaved, and it's not a happy cat. He's like, he's in the window meowing and hissing. Can I have the little square ruler over there?
This way?
Yeah, it'll be a little easier for me to do this piece. Okay, so ultimately you have all of these points on there. Yes, there are ways that you can do this, but I'm going to recommend that you just take all of the pieces and you trim them so that they are square, so that you have that nice edge. And then I sew all of these the same. The strip in front of me goes left and right. The next strip that I'm going to add to goes over top of this. The key is making sure that you actually overlap. This is the only time that I actually use the marks on my mat. So as you can see here, I've got this piece and it's overlapping this line ever so slightly. All right, let me make it more exaggerated so you can see it. So the edge of this overlaps this particular line a little bit. Then I'm going to take this piece and I'm straight here and I'm going to lay this over top of this piece here. Right? And I'm using this straight edge. And then I typically draw a line. I will use my ruler and I will place my ruler right here.
From corner to corner.
From corner to corner, and I will typically draw that. Now, this is what I do when I'm moving from place to place. All right. So there are a lot of times when I'm actually just sitting at my sewing
machine.
Yep, I'm sitting at my machine, and I have a little tiny mat that I put next to me. And in that instance, what I would actually do is I would take the quarter inch line that is on this ruler, and I would line that up with the area to cut, and I would actually just pre-whack this off.
Pre-whack.
Yes.
That is the extremely important term of the day.
And then I would place one pin in this so that the two pieces don't shift. And are there any pins around here?
No. But I bet you Hayden's going to go find us one.
There's one in that drawer with the rotary cutters.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There's one. He wasn't kidding.
Okay, this one will work. So I'm going to pretend that I
Thank
actually
you.
sewed this together. So I'm going to pin this in here. Try and pin it relatively straight-ish. Okay, so that's my seam allowance. And then when I open this up, you can see that I have my strip.
So something that I like to visualize, I guess, when I'm sitting at the machine, if I'm doing this at the machine, my first piece is going off to the left, so to the left of the needle.
Yep.
And I've got it sitting out there. And then when I turn, both of my excess pieces, so the tails, are going off to the left. So if I can remember that, I always sew the same direction, and then I'm not oopsing and having to re-sew some of those pieces.
Yeah.
So
you are always going to basically be sewing, like Lisa said, from the left to the right.
Yep. So you know,
like
when I have that sitting at my machine, these pieces are both going off the machine, not into the body of the machine. And as long as you remember that that's the direction the excess goes, all of your folds and everything are going to go in the right direction, and you won't have a mess to clean up after the fact.
Yep.
Because it's really annoying when you do that.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, you probably haven't done it in a really long time. I haven't done it in a really long time, but it's not hard to sew that wrong.
It isn't. I mean, and the thing is you have to, like Lisa said, find some way
to mentally make it
mentally make sense, which is why I always start with this piece. I always lay this piece on, and I always know that I'm going from this top corner to the bottom right. And again, if you just keep repeating the same thing, you're very unlikely to sew it the wrong way because it will not feel natural to you. But that is, I mean, that's the same concept. If I have to sew a border piece, and I'm adding two pieces together, I'm gonna do exactly the same piece.
Yep.
I'm always gonna put a diagonal seam in a border or something like that because this is less noticeable to the eye than a straight, flat, blunted seam would be.
Oh, definitely.
That hard seam. So, you know, that's typically how I do that.
Would you recap what you said about cutting the tails?
Sure. I'm assuming
try the other edges.
This from this side. So I'm going to take all of my bias strip pieces and I'm going to cut the extra bits on there. So like the parts on the binding that are not straight. And again, I'm using the straight part of my ruler on here. I'm not using my cutting mat, guys. Don't use your cutting mat. And I'm going to trim this here. So I've got two really straight pieces of material to work with. My first piece is going to go on my cutting mat. And I like to line the top line up with a straight line. I'm not worried about cutting on this. I'm just using my line, this on my for visual. And I want to make sure that this top piece is overlapping the next straight line, because the only way your binding pieces are going to be straight is if you start straight. So if I put this on this way, even if I sewed a diagonal seam like this and I opened it up, I wouldn't end up straight because it would be wonky. So I want to make sure that I've got them going, that they're very straight. And so I'm going to, again, lay this over here so I have a very straight piece. And at this point, I have two options. I need to mark the point that I want to sew. I don't think that this should be some seam that you eyeball. That's not my recommendation. So, but essentially what we have to do is we have to sew from this point here, the where the two intersection pieces meet. So this one here, sew diagonally down to this piece here. And every time I have ever thought that I was going to sew straight, what I did was I sewed and then I kind of went out and then I came in. So there was like a little bow in the middle or something. And so when I actually opened that out,
it was a little extra fabric,
right? Either a little less, so it either pulled in or it looked like a C cup. So it was a little too big. So I need to make a note of this part here. So you can do one of two things. You can draw this diagonal piece here, and once you have drawn it, I would slip a pin in it so that I don't actually move it around. So it stays exactly where I want it to be.
And that is the actual stitch line. That is not a 1/4 inch from or anything. That's is where the needle is going.
You are stitching from the inside point here to basically the outside point over here. Now,
from left to right.
Right, from the top left down to the bottom right-hand corner. Now, I don't typically draw the line because I'm too impatient to do that. I typically cut it. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking the 1/4 inch mark on my ruler, which is right here and right here. And I am placing that 1/4 inch mark right in the inside corner. So the part that I was going to draw on. And then I'm going to take my ruler again, my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut
extremely fancy ruler,
the excess off. And now what I have here is essentially my seam allowance left in, which is this little bit right here. So then I would take my pin and make sure that I pin my two pieces together. It's much harder to do when you're this far away.
And this time, that cut line is the seam allowance, not the needle positioning.
Right. So there is, you can see over here, this is essentially my my seam allowance. So I'm going to be sewing to this point here. And on the back part, I have that same gap. I have a little point. So I'm going to sew from that edge all the way down to this edge, lining my presser foot up wherever my 1/4 inch edge is,
yep,
right here, and sewing across. And so then what I will end up with is a seam that's sewn from here all the way down to here, so that when I flip it open,
it's pinning magic.
Yeah, I have my diagonal seam. And if you don't sew diagonally well, you're going to end up with this. And this is, I see this all the time. So there's a big gap at the top. It doesn't sit flush. And there's a big gap at the bottom where the edge of the binding piece doesn't meet. And that is because you didn't sew from point to point, or you sewed from point to point, but your fabric wasn't square.
Right. You started with it on an angle.
You started with it on an angle, yes. And so the goal is that when you have this open, it opens up.
And that those straight lines then line up beautifully.
Yep.
You press like that and you go, keep going. Right.
Yep, that's the goal.
So there you go, Miss Sandy. So, one more, oops, this one. I don't usually do this part.
So hopefully that
good at it.
Was helpful. So that is how you sew your pieces together.
Yep.
Again, not difficult. You just need to know the correct starting point and the correct ending point in order to make sure that you get that nice diagonal seam.
And this is not one of those speed race things. This is a do it right the first time. Take your time and get it right where you want it to be.
Absolutely.
Because those little ends like to get chewed up.
It's so hot over here.
She's warm.
Yeah, it's 76
I'm not
over here.
I'm very comfortable. I don't know what you're talking about.
I usually keep my house at 65.
Yeah, I keep mine at 68.
Yeah, this is
I do
really
not.
warm.
Just in case anybody was wondering.
Yeah,
I definitely don't.
There was no doubt about that.
But yeah, so take the time because if you have to take those stitches out, your ends are going to become frayed and you're going to end up having to cut them off and start over again. You're going to lose length.
Yes.
And who wants to do that? So just take it slow, do it right the first time, and rewatch this video when you're doing it.
Yeah.
And you'll be all good. So that is bias, and then sewing those strips together.
Yeah.
Not as scary as we like to make it out to be. Unless you Google it, and then it still is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry.
That's all right.
My watch bumped you.
It's okay.
I gotcha.
Our watches could kiss.
They could. Yep, we're weird. Anyway, Hayden's looking at us like,
Think about what happened before.
not really sure what that just. Oh, we're not going to bring that up. Thank you. No. So good. I'm glad you liked the info. That is what we brought you this week. So Kimberbell is here. We actually do have, because Carolyn worked really, really hard yesterday cutting to get some extra kits done. And then we did get the patterns in. So I think we even have a few past what we had pre-ordered. But the pre-order special has closed.
Right.
So at this point forward,
Marilyn skated in by the skin of her chinny chin chin.
So
she got I think she got the last free set of embroidery designs.
very cool.
Yes.
So I am going to go
look
home.
at, I can't
and
handle it.
You don't like the center part, do you?
I'm so used to just having, the reason I pull my bangs apart is because I constantly do this when I don't. And now I remembered why I don't do that.
Yeah, I do tend to run my hands through my hair, but not when I have something on my head. So,
no. But we have class tomorrow.
We do. So we've got 9:30 in the morning. There is foot fetish number 1, and she will be covering the bridging plates.
Yes.
Which I think is her totally new favorite foot ever put on. And then tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock when we close is embroidery club number 1 for this month. And then this Saturday, again, 9:30, but then 3 o'clock for embroidery. For those you don't have to sign up for the foot fetish. You can just go right to our website, which you've seen here somewhere. And I think it was on the beginning. Hello, you're here.
Yes.
Thing, but it's just LeabuSewingCenter.com, and you can check out the class calendar there. In the notes, you will find the link. You don't need to sign up for her foot fetish. Just pop on and check it out. They
are both a Zoom meeting, just as an FYI. It is not Facebook Live. It is not YouTube Live. It is a Zoom meeting.
Yep. But you don't have to pre-register. You just click on the link and boom, there you go. Not for her. For me, you do, because there's a kit. And designs. Goodies and designs and things that you would need to come in. I do still have a few available. So if you were thinking about it, but you hadn't gotten in here yet, you literally could get here. We've already got that taken care of for you, Miss Judy. You can just show up. We've already got them burned for you. So you don't have to do that.
Yes, we burned them on a USB stick.
We burned them. Yep, that's how you do that. That's how you do that.
Who pre-ordered their kit, you have a USB stick in with your kit, and you will be able to get that. What about the serger class?
Yep.
There is a virtual serger
Sip and Surge, which
event.
Is going to be a class of sorts. But there's no fee, so it is completely free. That one will be live, but we will be showing some videos to hopefully
some
preemptive
videos,
strike any oopses we make.
Yes.
So we'll have some videos on how you can use sergers in different ways. And if you've been thinking about getting a serger, there's some great things that are available. There are kits available on the website if you would like to purchase a kit.
Yep.
They're up.
Are they?
They're totally there.
Good job.
Ha ha ha. Variant null.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they are on the website if you would like to get a kit. So you can sew along with us. That is how you will receive the pattern, is if you purchase a kit. Otherwise, just kind of guesstimate what we're doing. Just kidding. Don't do that. But we are going to be sewing on the serger. And maybe a few stitches on a regular sewing machine as well, but we're not going to actually talk about that a whole lot. That'll be like
if
that'll
you
be
don't
movie
have
magic.
Yeah, if you don't have the cover hem version of the machine, there are some steps that you could do.
Some things
with
that
the
will
regular
say
sewing
these are your
machine.
options on how you could do this step here, but
Yeah.
it is going to be how sergers work, why sergers work, and why you want one.
Yes.
If you don't already have one. If you already have one, it's a great refresher of,
It
hey,
is.
I didn't know that my machine could do that.
But full disclosure, the goal of this event is to sell
This is
sergers.
a sales event, guys.
So if we're constantly saying, if you would like to purchase one,
There's a reason.
this is how, or
Yep.
this is why, or come in.
Right.
Please know that the main goal of this class is for
Is
us
to
to
show
sell
people that don't have a serger how they work, and why they want one,
why you need a baby lock.
and why you want a baby
That's
lock.
right.
So if you have something that's not a baby lock, you should tune in because it will totally blow your mind.
It'll change your life.
It'll change your life. Absolutely. Not that we
Yes.
don't change your life weekly
Every
on Tuesday
Tuesday.
afternoon, but it is a really great thing. So again, that is a free class. So
Yeah, it is a free.
that will be just did we decide how we were going to do that?
The serger.
Yeah,
It
we're
is.
going to put that on YouTube,
I think so. I don't think it's going to stay on Facebook forever.
but it's not going to be a Zoom.
No, it is
It's going to be a YouTube thing. So it will be a live. You can type in questions and things just like you guys did here today.
Yeah.
If you have them, that kind of stuff, I think is what we're looking at.
Yes.
So just to recap, this week, tomorrow morning, 9:30 or 5 o'clock is class. On Saturday, 9:30 or 3 o'clock is class.
Mhm.
And then April 2nd, which is the following Friday, is going to be that sip and surge event. And so the idea was that, you could sip something while we surge.
We're gonna
do
be
it in the
drinking.
afternoon. So I am really pushing. If Mountain Dew is watching, you need to start sponsoring us so that we can have a can of Mountain Dew. I'm just
That's
kidding.
right. We're going to be drinking,
we'll be-
which is why there's going to be some pre-recorded classes.
There you go.
Because
'Cause we
will
are both totally-
surge and drink at the same
Mhm.
time. It's a bad habit.
It's a bad habit.
Yeah.
But lots of knives and needles going on in that
That's
machine.
right.
So you got to be really careful.
And then the following week,
The following week we have OESD.
we have an OESD stabilizer event, and that will be really fun.
It will. And that's another one of those completely free virtual events. The registration link is actually already up on our website. If you go to LeabuSewingCenter.com and go to the OESD tab, right at the top of the page is the registration, the information and the registration link. So you can sign up for that. That is not something you can call or email us to sign up for. That is actually signing up with them. So that is how to do that. We will certainly send out an email you will be getting shortly.
Yes.
That was on today's list, but email topped the list. And unfortunately, it's still not fixed.
Still an issue.
Still an issue. So the surger class is April 2nd, 3:30. 3:30
Mm-hmm.
that Friday. So Sarah's going to come in late that day so she can stay late with me. So yes, we're going to, we may be drinking by then.
Drinking.
We might be.
It might be a late night.
It might be a really late night. Puppies, we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah,
But,
might as well just stay. We're bringing our sleeping bags.
I have often thought that is probably the way to go here.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like I go home
Don't.
just to turn around to come back.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
I definitely feel
So
like that's
that is what's coming up. What did you lose?
my mask.
Oh,
I'm so used to it being here.
yes, there's
That-
nothing there.
It's not there.
Mine's over here too. So
that we're a little early today.
we are, but that's okay.
Yep.
Sarah can actually get out of here at a decent time, and we will see you guys coming up real soon.
Yes.
Because probably at a class sometime this week.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you on the flip side next week or sooner.
Will.
All right. Thanks for tuning in. You guys have a great day.
I have
She's
a
got to find
video.
something that says thank you. There you go.
Bye.
Bye.